Hey guys, welcome back. Dueling Charisma here. Doing a video I've been wanting to make for a long time. This is BloodBorne versus Dark Souls 3. The comparison and contrast between the two games, which one I personally prefer, and my ups and downs on both. Let's get into it. So, as you know, BloodBorne is a very fast-paced game with replacing shields instead of guns, which personally is a very, very strong point to me. I really like the idea that you can't just cower behind a shield the entire game, and Stormer XI shares my opinion. I like the fact that you're forced to get up and at 'em at your opponent rather than just waiting to bait out their attack and then punish. I feel that's not really the way a Souls game should work, and that its difficulty should be experienced hands-on, not by the use of a protection source larger than the size of your face. Anyway, just to prove how fast-paced that BloodBorne is in comparison to Dark Souls, let's go ahead and see what this got. So, tell me, what would happen if this were to be in a Dark Souls game? If this boss was in a Dark Souls game, you try baiting out his attack, and then he does this. Because this is the spell known as a Call Beyond in BloodBorne. It triggers whenever you're a certain set X amount of distance away from Mikolash, host of the nightmare. And, of course, that's what you're doing most of the time in Dark Souls. You're spending time away from the boss and always having your shield up. But tell me, what good would that shield do when this happens?
Oh, Jesus, not this shit! Fuck!
And that's my exact opinions on that spell. Now tell me, do you think that your shield would protect you from that? An AoE that pretty much devastates the area and is guaranteed one-shot kill, regardless of your vitality and or location. No. So that's the one thing that I really, really enjoy about BloodBorne, and it really does live up to the action part of its genre. It's not an action, wait for something to happen genre, it's an action genre. Every single move is vital to your existence and could determine the fate of your character, whether you win that PvP match or die in front of millions of people to see. Now, this is a strong point for Dark Souls. The BloodBorne premise is, of course, you are a hunter set out into a foreign land to explore and hunt beasts of the nightly thread in order to protect and save the Arnhemites, a very small group of civilians who need protecting from them. They protect their families every night by coming out and hunting the beasts of Yharnam and Bergenworth and whatnot. And here's where a big point for Dark Souls takes a turn. Of course, when they say hunting the beasts of Yharnam, they take it not to jest with. For an example, the first 5 bosses of the game are beasts. The Cleric Beast, Father Gascoigne, who transforms into a beast. Bloodstar's Beast, Vicar Amelia, who is a beast. Honestly, in my opinion, more of a messed up looking reindeer, but there's also Darker Beast, Parl. All the first 5 bosses in the game are beasts. All of them. And of course, it's to be expected as it is a beast, but tell me, do you notice a difference between this, and of course I realize that the zoom isn't the best, so this, all of this is quite honestly one of the ugliest things I've seen in the game. Now which one's cooler, that, or freaking this? This is way cooler, right? Okay. So you're thinking, well, but hang on, BloodBorne may not be completely bad. Let me show you another example. let's not get into what this looks like compared to this. So yes, I will go ahead and give BloodBorne the benefit of the doubt that yes, they do have a much, much better system when it comes to the game actually being played. However, when it comes down to it, we do obviously know that, well, Dark Souls definitely takes the cake in faster paced, in not faster paced bosses, but better looking bosses, which, let's be honest, the aesthetic of the bosses themselves, relatively to an extent, boils down whether or not the overall game is memorable or not. Now, the next point also takes a drastic turn for BloodBorne's not so much failure as it is a misinterpretation of what the Souls franchise should be like. Now, let me show you all these weapons. Oh, I'm sorry, half of that was actually just... I'm sorry, half of that was just comments. Boom. That is 26 weapons. Those are the only 26 main weapons that you can use in the game. Might I add that a third of them are available only within the DLC. And we'll get more on this later. Compare that to all of this. You got weapon categories. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. I must have skipped 2. I'm sorry, 1. Nope. No, I'm sorry. I am correct at 24. That is 24 different categories of weapons. There is almost as much categories of weapons as there are actual weapons in BloodBorne. Now, if you want to go ahead and take the time to convert all these and determine the actual amount, don't worry. I already took that time and made the compiled list for you. Dark Souls 3 has over 200 in-game weapons, compared to the measly 26 in BloodBorne, with the DLC included. And of course, Dark Souls 3 has gotten neither of its 2 DLCs yet. Now, of course, that means that with Dark Souls, you can get many, many, many different builds as compared to the very small, minute amount of builds you can get with BloodBorne. So overall, in terms of actual fun, Dark Souls 3 is what I would honestly say the better game between the two, because yes, it does have much more builds, much more armor types, and it'll just provide you with a lot more content and experience. That's not a lie. However, I also, at the same time, must highly ask of you that you do check out BloodBorne if you are a Souls veteran. Because, especially for people who either haven't played it yet, or have been too caught up defending themselves at shields, I must tell you from a personal perspective that BloodBorne is on a whole different caliber than what you expect. From the parry difference, to the way damage is dealt, to the way weapons work. I just overall believe that though Dark Souls 3 is the superior game, BloodBorne does indeed have many, many, many great victories in it, in which the Dark Souls 3, well, more so Dark Souls franchise as a whole, could not achieve. For another example, BloodBorne has boss phases as to where With Dark Souls, it is generally the same stage, the same attacks over and over again. Now, one exclusion of this, of course, would be Ornstein and Smough, but at the same time, when you look at all of the bosses in the game, you start to realize that all the fights are somewhat the same fight throughout. But with Bloodborne, the fights differ greatly, with bosses going from tearing off their arms and using it as extra damage, to bosses who turn into a beast, to bosses who vomit poison, for lack of a better term. I feel Bloodborne definitely got the boss perspective right, and I also think it's amazing to press a certain button to, rather than two-hand / dual-wield your weapon, to have it transform into an entire new entity of a weapon in amongst itself. So therefore, I will also say again that Bloodborne does have the advantage in that weapon transformations / weapon handling is much better. Now, again, this is just a personal note, but I feel it should be mentioned more or less, that whilst with Bloodborne it is super easy to repair your weapons, I feel with Dark Souls you kind of have to go a little bit of a distance, you know. With the original Dark Souls, you had to get a repair box to repair your weapons, where with Bloodborne it was already there, and you could just start repairing them. And especially in Bloodborne, they charged very, very, very low prices for repairing a weapon. In fact, I think the highest amount of echoes I've ever had to pay for repairing a weapon in Bloodborne was maybe 700 echoes because of a straight 24-hour farming session. Now, with that said, that has been my opinions. Again, I do hope that Dark Souls 3 can carry over the phases of boss fights and the weapon transformations rather than just dual wielding it. If that could be combined into the Dark Souls franchise, I feel it would definitely become an amazing game that really deserves the AAA title that it gets, and definitely would make Miyazaki a much, much, much greater known, not only game developer, but much better influence throughout the gaming industry. Because cool boss designs, plus different phases making it more challenging, plus transforming weapons from one thing into a completely another state, is just pure awesomeness to me. Anyways, that's been my opinions. Please don't forget to like, favorite, comment, share, and subscribe for all the hard work I put into these videos. Have a good day, and may the good blood guide your way. This has been John Charisma, signing out.